Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Scott Schilling Speaks. I'm your host, Scott Schilling. We've got a great friend with us today, born in Germany, raised in Switzerland, came to the United States in 2000. Couldn't get her in here earlier. What's going on there? A financial advisor, safe money advisor. Daniela, welcome to Scott Schilling Speaks.
Well, thank you, Scott, for being here. And it's an honor. And I was looking forward to this event. So let's get going.
Let's have some fun. So I know you're a safe money advisor. You help people understand their retirement solutions and insurance from that side. But I know that it's also really important to you to help people learn about financial literacy. Why is that so important?
Well, I think everything depends on how financially literate you are. Where are you going to be able to buy a house, save for retirement? And financial literacy, it starts with, counting coins in kindergarten all the way to serious retirement planning. And the reality is, in this country, and I came to learn that, number one, we save too little, we spend too much, and we excessively borrow, right? And the interesting thing is that a lot of other countries, especially like in Europe or in Asia, they really promote financial literacy, to their citizens, adopting smart money moves and all that. Whereas in America, it's almost like the total opposite. It's like here, it's almost normal that we live beyond our means, right? That we rely on credit. And so again, that's just where financial literacy comes in. And this should be part of school curriculums, which it is in some states, but in most states it isn't. And so that's why I think financial literacy is really important so that you can achieve your financial goals and, live the life that you want.
So just being able to print money whenever you want it probably doesn't lead into any of that over excessive spending, or we don't have any models like that would do things like that to confuse people on financial literacy, do we?
No, unfortunately not, and again, when I came to America, that was one of the things that really got my attention. So in Europe, where I grew up, you basically buy something when you have the money to buy it. Well, except like a big house or, a car maybe. But other than that, we don't rely on credit. And here, what I realized, it's all about instant gratification. And the same with, the government and everything else. And it's normal it's almost people think it's normal to live beyond their means. And when you really look at it, over half of the people in this country live paycheck to paycheck or less, or they have less at the end of the month. And how are you going to save money with that type of attitude? Because financial literacy is also having the right attitude about money. Making money, not money, but making savings a priority in your life. And a lot of people, it's not that part, right? It's all that instant gratification, and well, I'm not a millennial. I wish I would, but we all know the term YOLO, right? You know what YOLO means? You only live once.
Yeah.
Okay, so I learned that too because when I talk to millennials, you only live once. And that is great that you want to enjoy the moment, but think about it. It is your younger self that's going to take care of your older self. And if you just live YOLO, right? So the millennials, they'll know what I'm talking about. Then you're going to become yo-yo. And yo-yo means you are on your own, right? And yeah, that's going back to your question. Yeah, it's not a situation that's going to solve the problem, just printing more money. I truly believe that education, knowledge is power. And then, of course, you have to apply it as well.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And it's interesting. I grew up, my parents, I was kind of a skip generation. I was kind of one and a half in between. My parents were older and, lived through the Depression as kids and things like that here in the United States and much different time. And we were never without anything, but we never had the best either. They were very much, I think if you were to share their style of financial literacy and financial sharing, people would just go, there's not a chance in heck I'm going to do that, right? Where you actually had you actually cashed your check, put $20 in this slot, $40 in this slot, and whatever, and that was the money management system. And it's interesting that I lived with that model or saw that model and adopted it for a while until the possibility of having a lot at a time was possible. And then somehow I reverted into that. Isn't it amazing what we can do in the immediate gratification society and all the different things we can have? And then you realize it's not the things that are important. So you go through cycles, but that's actually why I've lived both ends of it. I've had a lot, I've had little. A lot's more fun, by the way, just in case you're wondering. And I think everybody would say that, but we're not educating people the way we should. So I'm all for that because, again, then you come up against the next thing. The biggest challenges that a lot of people are facing now is retirement. I know you and I were on a call yesterday where we were talking about most people couldn't put, 68% of all bankruptcies could be averted with $562 more a month. It's kind of ridiculous, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, when you look at the savings rate in America, we are way behind a lot of other nations. Again, talk, for instance, about Europe, talk about Asia. Like in most countries in Europe, people save 10+%, which is the minimum you should be saving here in America. Now, some countries in Asia, and this might surprise you, but China, it's over 40%. So people are able to put 40% away for savings, retirement, and all of those things. So we're trailing way behind. And again, it goes back to financial literacy. And to your point, so when I came to this country a little over 20 years ago, I had good savings habits and all that. I never had credit cards. And then 8 years into it, I ended up in the same situation like mostly everybody. I was spending too much. I was saving little, actually nothing. And I had credit card debts up to here. And then 2008, the crash happened. And I realized, okay, this just can't keep happening. And it can't keep going like this. And that's how I also got into teaching myself, first of all, the importance of financial literacy. And really, I learned it the hard way. And so I know, like you said, I know how it feels when you're on this side of the spectrum where you're living paycheck to paycheck or even worse than that. But I also know what are the steps you need to take to get yourself to here and then get yourself to the other side so that you don't have to worry about where is the money coming from to pay my next, gas bill or electricity bill. And again, a lot of people are in this situation because it's not a lack of resources, but it's people live more in the moment, right? There's some great websites that have resources where you can start learning, teaching yourself about how to budget. Or another thing is everybody has stuff these trivial things that we spend money on every single day, right? Do you have one, Scott? Starbucks? Coffee?
No, I actually don't, but I have a story about that with a friend of mine, his son, but go right ahead. Go ahead, try to take a shot at me. That's
I think we all have, since COVID,
it's cough drops. I have a cough drop fetish.
Oh, good to know. All right. So you get stockings with cough drops then.
That's right.
But so a lot of people don't realize you spend $5 here, $5 day in, day out. Let's just take $5. And I call it, not I call it, but it's called the latte effect, the latte factor, right? It's all these trivial things that we spend money on that add up over time. So let's take that $5 a day. Now, over, let's say 10 years, if you would have not spent that money, made your own coffee, you would have saved over $25,000. Over the course of 40 years, I know that's a long time, you would have added up to $300,000, just $5 a day. Either skip something or save $5 a day. And sometimes you have to break things down, the big thing into small little pieces, which are manageable. And again, those are simple things that people don't pay attention to because we focus more on the big stuff. Oh, I want that big house. I want that big car. I want all these toys in my driveway because it looks good and keeping up with the Joneses. And that's not how we get to financial stability or choices, because people say, oh, money is not that important. Well, it's pretty important because money buys you choices. It buys you freedom. It buys you peace of mind. If you don't have money, you're stressed out. People who have no money there have a lot more cases of depression, divorces, and so on and on and on. So money is important. So getting a hand off your money, getting the hang of your money. See, I'm a foreigner, I can do that. Getting a hang of your money is one of the things they should teach that in schools, school curriculums. And as a matter of fact, a few years ago, I was approached by the principal of one of the largest school districts in California. And she had this great idea. She wanted to introduce a financial literacy curriculum at her elementary school. So we all put our heads together, and we put together like an outline, a curriculum and all that. The teachers were excited. The principal was excited. It was submitted to the school district. And guess what the answer was?
No.
No, there's not enough funding. It's not important enough. And we couldn't believe it. Yeah. But again, it just tells you kind of where this country's at. So go ahead now, your story.
Well, no, it's totally, I wrote about it in my last book. I had a friend, we were talking one day and he said, I give my son $1,000 a month so that while he's going to college, he doesn't have any concerns. If he needs books, he can buy the books. If he wants to go and eat a meal, he can buy them, But he said, my son continually, about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks into the month, is out of money. And I said, that's a fair amount of money. How do you spend $1,000? He goes, I don't know. And so we actually sat down with the son and made him log for 30 days the amount of money. He was spending $710 a month at Starbucks.
Wow, you should have bought stocks.
Can you imagine that? It wasn't like 300, it wasn't 200, it wasn't, I grab one every once in a while. It was 700. It was over 70% of the fund money that his dad gave him on a monthly basis. And it really called, again, back when you have resources, when you have the opportunity to make a lot of money or do it, what do you do with that? And I was taught by some of my speaking mentors, it's not about the money. It's not about money in particular. It's about the two things that come with money: the influence you can have and the good you can do. And you can't do as much good if you don't have the resources. It's just that simple. And so I'm wholehearted, would love to share the financial literacy message more. I fell trap into it. I'm not the only one. You sit there some days and you go, what the heck are you thinking? And then you learn there are other things available. And I think one of the things that I know you specialize in, or you talk with a lot of women about their finances and really their lack of financial literacy, because for far too long, it was not their job, right? It wasn't their responsibility to take care of money. So how do you change that situation going forward?
Well, so yeah, as you mentioned, the reality, financial literacy and women, they're trailing way behind what men know about finances. And yeah, traditionally, men usually took care, they bring home the money and they took care of the finances. And so women are like 3 times more likely not to save money for retirement, right? But think about it. So they save less. And by the way, women generally still in most countries make less than men too. So we save less because we make less, but we live 5 years longer. So that's not a good combination, right? And our living expenses are the same like they are for men, generally, or even more. You have to.
Yeah, let's go with the even more. Come on, okay. You got to throw that one in for sure.
Oh, I'm fine with that. So then therefore for women, there's a lot more, there is more things more intensely that they should be preparing for. And so often, I would say probably about 80% at least of my clients are women who have gone through similar situations like I did. There's a lot of women, they are out there, they're either not married, they're divorced. And by the way, a man is not a financial plan. And unfortunately, a lot of women still think that, okay, well, the spouses, they took care of them when they're older. Well, even if they're still together, hopefully, but then as women, we outlive men by on average 5 years. So, and a lot of women are finding themselves in a situation where either they get divorced or then they stay single, or, they end up widowed, and then they have no idea what to do next. And then they're obviously prone being taken advantage of, doing the wrong things. And it's really a sad story. And when you look at, well, especially when it comes to retirement planning, what are some of the risks in retirement planning? Well, there's a lot of them, but women are more exposed to them because we live longer. Longevity is a real risk, right? Because it multiplies everything else that you're dealing with. It multiplies the risk of, going through ups and downs of the market. You probably remember, well, for sure you remember 2001 and 2008. So 2008, most people lost almost half of their retirement savings. It took many people 6 to 7 years just to recover from what they had lost. And then you factor in 2001. So that's why the first 10 years of the 2000s, that was called the lost decade, because you would have started with $100,000 beginning 2000. And at the end of that 10 years, you would have ended up with 75,000. So now the next decade, the last 10 years, that was phenomenal, right? I mean, double-digit returns. So anybody could have made money in the market. So, but when you're looking at planning for retirement, you cannot just look at the 10 best years. You also have to factor in the 10 worst years, right? And then your retirement planning looks a whole lot different than if you're planning on a rate of return of 10, 12% on an annual basis. So that's a big risk. Inflation. I mean, when you look what's happening right now in this country, going back to what you said about printing money. Now, where's inflation? It's almost doubled, or actually it has doubled since last year. Yeah. And I remember when I came to this country, gas was less than half 20 years ago. Now it's like $4 or $5, depending what state you live in, or $3 if you're lucky, right? So that's another risk. Then also there is health risk. A lot of people don't realize that, well, in retirement, we're not going to be as healthy as we are in our younger years. And the biggest overlooked thing, or one of the biggest overlooked things in retirement, is long-term care. A long-term care facility can easily cost $100,000 plus a year. And that can eat up any retirement savings that a couple has saved up for in just a few years. And then what? Because Medicare generally does not pay for nursing homes. So you have to use your own resources. Right. And then what's left for the surviving spouse, which oftentimes is the woman, right? And talk about higher taxes. We have been in one of the lowest tax environments in the last 100 years. And again, with the deficit, Social Security, Medicare going broke, you can read it every year on your statement. 2033, it's supposed to, be reduced. The money they were printing, so taxes mathematically have to be higher and have to go up. And so if taxes go up, it's not so much how much you have, but what you keep of what you have. And so a lot of people, when I talk to them, would say, well, there's another name on your 401k statement. And they're like, what, where, what, how? My spouse? No, Uncle Sam. And then your 401k can become a 201k or a 301k just because of taxes. Yep. So you have to plan for that tax. The longer you live, the more you're going to be exposed to higher taxes. And there's a few others, but those are the main risks that, again, women have to be prepared for and plan for, and not at the last minute, but well ahead of time. We do workshops on financial literacy for 20-year-olds, 30 years old, 40 years old, because the younger you start, the more time you have, the less money you got to put away, and the less tweaks you have to make, and the less stress you have, obviously, in retirement.
Yeah, for sure. It all ties together. As back in the day when we were doing stock market education seminars, and we used to share that once you lose money, I mean, Warren Buffett's 2 rules. Number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, pay attention. Number 1, don't lose money, right? When you said that 100,000, let's say you lost $50,000, unfortunately, went from 100,000 down to 50,000. That's a 50% loss. But to make it back to the 100, it's 100% gain. You've got to double your money there. And that's what most people I don't think most people realize that when you lose off a bigger number, the number the percentage you lose is smaller. To regain it, it's going to be bigger. So you've got to outpace things and do all sorts of different things. And I think that's, I remember the day that I learned that, and I was like, oh my God, nobody has ever taught me that. How do I not know that? There's just so much of this that people need to know. I know a lot of times when I'm standing in front of an audience, I'll say by a show of hands, how many of you don't know what you don't know? And the reality is, obviously, the hands go up. Well, is it fair to say somebody knows what you don't know? Is it even possible I might know, or Daniela might know what you don't know? And so you have to suspend disbelief for a little while and say, please share this information. Now, whether you take advantage of the information or not, that's up to you. But at least take in the information because it's so important. And we're in a very critical period now, obviously, with the pandemic and coming through it and all the different stuff that's going on. So, if somebody says, well, okay, you got my attention. How much should I start saving for my future? Where do you start?
Yeah, well, ideally, and again, this is in a perfect world, if you do not have a pension, and this is one of the big things in this country that changed for retirement, 20, 30, 40 years ago, pensions that were the norm. And so you work, for 20, 30, 40 years for a company, and then you get a pension, 70, 80% of your retirement. Of your income was for your retirement, and then Social Security would supplement the rest. But now that pensions have gone away, it's really on us individuals to save a lot of money. And the sooner you start, the more important it is. So let's say you start in your 20s and 30s, 10% at least. And it's not just about, oh yeah, I'm going to save 10% for my retirement, for my future, way down the road. But it's also how you do it. And a lot of people, one of the golden rules in financial literacy and being financially successful is what? Pay yourself first.
Yep.
And most people, what do? Well, I'm going to pay this bill. I'm going to pay that bill. Then, and on and on and on. And then at the end, there's no money left for ourselves. And oftentimes there's even too much month left at the end of the money, right? And so it's really important to establish when you start saving, do that first. Whenever you get your money in your checking account, your paycheck, whatever, take that money out first, and you will figure out the rest. 10% is ideal if you're younger. If you can't do 10%, start with 2%, start with 3%. It's all a matter of habit. We are creatures of habit. You can get used to skipping that one Starbucks, start it once a week, then do it twice a week. And all of a sudden you get in the habit of just adjusting. Right. But I'm telling you, I tell everybody, you are going to thank yourself later. Now, when we're in our 40s and 50s and we haven't really done anything, I call that we're a little late to the game. I was late to the game. And so then, well, if you want to have a comfortable retirement and maintain your lifestyle, you're looking more at 15 to 20%. And remember, there is nations out there like China, they're saving 40% plus. Or in Europe, 15%, 10, 15%, that's the norm. So why can't we do it here as Americans? And I think it also has to do with mindset. You have to put savings as a priority and not as, oh yeah, something I'm going to get done when I get to it, right? And that's part of financial literacy too. It's not just knowing what vehicles to use and how to use them. A lot of people, there was a study that was done a few years ago, 2/3 of Americans miserably failed. And it was just basic questions on financial literacy, stocks, bonds, how do interest rates work and stuff like that. And that is very concerning. So you really have to get on that and, start somewhere, and I'm sure you teach that all the time. Start somewhere, first step. Right?
You got to take that first step, that first action. You were saying earlier, offering up a program for kids in school and how important that would be. And I don't think they want to teach them to really critically look at how screwed up everybody else is that's older than them. I think that's where it really comes down. It's like, hey, do as we say, not as we do. Just Don't look at the guy behind the curtain, just stay from that side. So how do you protect yourself against the pandemic? I asked a question, the first audience I was in front of, I said, how many of you by a show of hands planned for a worldwide pandemic last year in your business plan? And there were crickets. Nobody had done that. So
Yeah.
how do you plan for something like that?
Well, first of all, emergency funds, right? It's amazing to me how many people don't have an emergency fund. Now, how much should you have? Well, it kind of depends what type of work you do, but minimum 3 months. You should have 3 months of your expenses. Now, that doesn't include your vacation to Europe or Hawaii, okay? Just your pure expenses. You should have that set aside in something that's liquid. Now, if you're more self-employed or you don't have like a stable job per se, it should be 6 months or more, right? So that obviously can help with, oh my God, what's happening now, right? Because beginning of the pandemic, nobody really know how we're going to navigate through this, and nobody knew it was going to take that long, and we're still not through it, right? So that's obviously a really important thing, having some backup money. And you mentioned it the other day, or even on this call, 60-70% of people don't even have an extra $1,000 saved up if there is an emergency happening. Now talk about a pandemic. that's a whole other story. So that's important. And then, well, sometimes then it's time to, look at your budget. Okay, where can we cut? Because you got to plan for the long run. Okay, how are we going to get through this? And now, ultimately, uncertainties in life, a lot of things can happen. And unfortunately, pretty much everyone knows somebody or knows somebody who knows somebody who didn't make it, right, because of the pandemic. And then, so that's some of the, people don't like the word insurance, but that's where insurance comes into play. It protects us against the uncertainties in life. Now, most people, they know about, or they have to have certain types of insurance, right, like homeowners, renters, auto insurance. What's the other one? Auto and health insurance. You have to have it by law. But then the two other types of insurance that most people really don't think about until something happens is, on one side, it's disability, long-term care insurance, right?
Yep.
And we insure everything. We have warranties for our blenders and our cell phones and this and that, but we don't insure our ability to earn an income. And that also, a lot of people through the pandemic, they experienced that. People having long-term effects and they can't go back to work for an extended period of time. So that's where that comes into play. And it's not excessively expensive. It's peace of mind. We hope we never use it, but history has shown that it's better to have something than not having it. And then on the other side is life insurance. And throughout this last year and a half, I think I've never had so many people calling our office and asking, okay, what about life insurance? Can I qualify for it and all that? Because again, it was put in our face that things can happen. And I think those two, long-term care, disability, and also life insurance, are the two things that can protect us or our families when things like a pandemic happen. I don't think it's going to happen again in my lifetime, or I hope not.
Yeah, for sure.
But we don't know. We don't know. And
Well,
so being educated on those type of things, it's financial literacy.
Yeah, no, I love that. Where can they learn about financial literacy? You have a website specifically for that, don't you?
Yes, I do. So financial literacy institute.org. So financial literacy has 2 L's, institute.org. And there's also
got to worry about spelling and finances too. My God. That's crazy.
Well, there's a first test,
That's right. Financial
Are
Literacy
you literate?
Institute.
Not financially literate. Are you literate?
That's right. Financial Literacy Institute.org. And how do they get a hold of you if they want to learn more?
Well, on that website, there's also obviously my contact information, my team. And so, anybody can send us an email or give us a call. And, if there's any questions or if there's anything, we also do workshops for all kinds of different audiences, schools, high school kids, businesses, teachers, and so on. That's also something that we can set up and help people with some basic financial literacy subjects or more advanced retirement planning, whatever it is.
Perfect. Sounds great. Well, we're going to have to do this again. We've run through our time for today, so we'll have to schedule another call and another show and talk about more things. Want to thank everybody for being here today. Scott Schilling speaks. We'll see you again Monday, exact same time. God bless.